The dark of space pressed against the windows of the Stellar Hope like a living thing. Commander Hayes stood on the bridge and watched the stars drift past. The ship was small compared to most vessels in the human fleet, but it was fast and it was his. That was all that mattered. "Sir, we are detecting an anomaly at bearing 170, said Wells from the engineering station. She was a sharp woman with quick hands and a sharper mind. Trusted her more than most people he knew. Moved closer to the sensor display. A signature showed on the screen, faint and broken like a signal struggling to reach them across a great distance. "What kind of anomaly?" he asked. Worked the controls, her fingers moving fast over the keys. "I am picking up reactor radiation patterns. Very old patterns. This ship has been broadcasting distress signals for maybe 4 or 5 days. The signals are getting weaker." Felt something shift in his chest. A ship in trouble, a crew dying in the cold of space. The decision came fast and easy. "Plot an intercept course," he said. The bridge crew moved without hesitation. This was what they did. This was what humans did. When someone needed help, you helped them. It was simple. 2 hours later, the Stellar Hope came up behind the damaged vessel. It was large, much larger than the Stellar Hope, and it was broken. One whole section of the hull was blackened and torn open. No ship could take that kind of damage and still hold together. But this one had. "They are trying to send a signal," said David Price from communications. He was young, barely 30, with the nervous energy of someone still learning his job. But he was good. He picked up the meaning in broken signals and dead frequencies. "Can you understand them?" asked. "It is. They speak English. Broken but English. They say their name is, they say their reactor is dying. They say they have maybe one day before all systems fail." They knew the name. Everyone knew the name. They were old, cold, proud. They did not need help from younger species. They did not ask for help. There was a ship, yes, but also something else. A symbol of a species that thought itself above the rest of the galaxy. "Tell them we are coming," said. "They are asking who we are," David said. His voice went quiet. "They are asking if we are collective. They are asking if we are here to finish them." Moved to the communications console himself. He keyed the channel. "This is Commander Hayes of the human vessel Stellar Hope. We come to help. Please confirm your status. We are not your enemy. We are here to assist." There was silence, long silence. Then a voice came through, sharp and hard and without any warmth. "This is Captain of the vessel. You are human. You are primitive. You have no reason to come here. You have no ability to help us." Kept his voice calm. "Captain, you are in trouble. We have medical personnel and engineering expertise. We also have reactor components that may be compatible with your systems. We can help." Humans do not help species they do not know. Humans take what they can take and leave the rest to die. This is what humans do. "Not my humans," said, "and not today." Docking took 2 hours. The airlocks hissed open and led a team across to the ship. The corridors were dark and cold. Emergency lights cast everything in red and shadow. The ship smelled wrong, like burning metal and something else he could not name. They found the crew in the engineering section. There were 8 of them and 5 were hurt bad. 1 was dying. They were tall, with skin that looked like polished stone and eyes that held no kindness. They watched and his people with the look of creatures prepared to fight. Captain stood in the center of the room. His left arm hung useless at his side. Blood, dark and thick, covered his uniform. "Why are you here?" he demanded. "Why do you risk your ship for creatures you have never met?" Did not answer with words. He nodded to David Price, who moved forward with medical supplies. He nodded to Wells, who moved toward the reactor core with diagnostic tools in her hands, and he moved toward himself. "Because that is what we do," said. "We save people, even when it costs us, even when we get nothing back." His eyes narrowed. "You will get nothing back." "I know," said. Reached the reactor. The damage was bad. The cooling systems had failed in 3 places. The core itself was unstable, fluctuating between states. One wrong move and the whole system would cascade into failure. She could see at once that they had tried everything. Their engineers were good. Their knowledge was deep, but they could not fix this alone. She pulled out her diagnostic pad and began to work. Her fingers moved fast. She talked to the engineers in simple words, showing them what she was doing. They understood. Despite their pride, despite their belief that humans were primitive, they understood. David worked on the injured. Their biology was different from humans, their organs arranged differently, their blood chemistry foreign. But the principles were the same. Stop the bleeding, ease the pain, keep them alive until they could be stabilized. It took 3 hours of hard work, 3 hours of explaining her actions to engineers who slowly began to trust her, 3 hours of her sweating under the radiation, working past the point where most would have given up, 3 hours of her refusing to leave the problem alone. Then the reactor stabilized, the fluctuation stopped, the light on the diagnostic pad turned green. Sat back and breathed hard. Her hands were shaking. Behind her, the engineers looked at the readings and then at her. One of them, an older male with scars on his face, touched her shoulder. "You saved us," he said. "We saved us," said. "Your people fought hard, I just helped finish the job." David finished with the last of the injured. The one who was dying was not dead. He was stable. He would live, though it would take time. David cleaned his hands and looked at. "They are ready," he said. Stood before Captain. The officer was still watching him with those hard eyes, but something had changed in them. Something like confusion, something like surprise. "You did this," said. "You risked your lives, you risked your ship for us, for creatures you do not know." "Yes," said. "Why?" Thought about the question. He thought about the long dark between the stars. He thought about how small everything was when you left the world behind. He thought about how easy it would be to turn away, to pretend you did not see the signal, to let the universe take what it wanted to take. Because, said, "We remember." Did not understand, could see that. But something in the words touched something in the captain, something old and buried deep. "You will leave now," said. "Your ship is not safe here. Go, and know that the will remember what you have done." Nodded, he turned to gather his people. As he reached the airlock, called out, "Commander Hayes, humans are not what we thought. I will tell this to my people. I will tell them what I have seen here." Did not know then how important those words would become. He did not know that they would echo across the stars. He only knew that they had done the right thing, and in a galaxy full of darkness, that had to be enough. The stellar hope pulled away from the vessel and set course for home. In the darkness behind them, the engines flared to life. Both ships moved on, each carrying the memory of a moment when two species had chosen to see each other as something more than enemies or primitives or strangers. In space, such moments are rare. They are also the moments that change everything. 6 months had passed since the stellar hope returned from its encounter with the vessel. Hayes stood in the Human Federation Council chambers and made his report. The room was full of politicians and military officials. Some listened with interest. Most were bored. It was, after all, just another rescue operation, just another story of humans doing what humans did. But in the Empire, the story meant something different. Captain stood before the council. This was a place of power, where the oldest of them made decisions that shaped entire star systems. The chamber was vast and cold, built from stone that had stood for 10,000 years, was one of the few who had permission to speak before them without permission. "I tell you this again," he said, his voice steady. "The humans are not what we believed. They are not primitive, they are not weak, and they are something that we have forgotten how to be." The council leader, an ancient name who had lived for 370 years, leaned forward. "Speak clearly, what did they show you?" "Sacrifice without gain," said. "They risked their vessel, they risked their crew, they risked everything. And they did this for creatures they had never met in exchange for nothing. No contract, no trade, no promise of future benefit. They saved us because we were dying. A younger council member stood. She was ambitious and sharp. She had always agreed that humanity was beneath them, that humans were animals playing at space travel. "This proves only that they are foolish," she said. "This proves they do not understand value. This proves they are not civilized." "Or it proves," said, "that they understand something we have forgotten. It proves that honor means something to them beyond trade and power." The chamber fell silent, waited. He knew his words were dangerous. Among the sentiment was weakness, but he had seen something in Hayes's eyes when the human commander had said those words, "Because we remember." Had spent the last 6 months trying to understand what that meant. Across the galaxy, in the ships and stations of the collective, different conversations were happening. They were not old like they were new, hungry, aggressive. They took what they wanted and destroyed what resisted. For 50 years they had been expanding, moving through space like a virus through a body. Their leader, a creature called Vex, sat in his war chamber and studied reports. His species was reptilian, fast, clever, but not patient. Vex was different. Vex could wait. "The humans have a small presence here," said one of his commanders, pointing at a star map. 3 stations, 1 colony world. They have limited military power, limited resources. They would be easy to crush. Vex smiled, and his teeth were sharp in the dim light. "Then we will crush them," he said, "but slowly. We will test their defenses. We will take their outposts. We will show the galaxy that strength matters and humans have none. When they fall, all the other small species will understand. You resist the collective, you die. That is the only truth that matters." The fleet began to move. Attack ships launched. Outposts burned. Human soldiers died. The Federation sent ships to defend, but the attacks were quick and vicious. They hit and moved on, disappearing into space before any real defense could form. News reached the Council. A transmission was intercepted from Vex himself. The message was simple and clear. The collective was expanding. The territories would be next, once humanity was broken. Stood before the council again. This time no one was bored. "Now you see," he said. "They test us through humanity. They test whether we will act, whether we will stand against those who would take what is ours, and they will destroy humanity first to show us that no one can resist them." Stood, but this time her voice was different. "What do you propose? We cannot go to war for a species we barely know." "We can go to war because it serves us," said. "We can go to war because the collective grows too bold. We can go to war because those humans saved our people when they owed us nothing. And now they face destruction when we could stop it. In the code, such a debt is clear. We repay what we owe." The ancient raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. "Your words are bold. Are you prepared to stake your life on the truth of them? Are you prepared to stand before this council as a warrior, not just a captain?" Stepped forward. He drew his blade, an old weapon passed down through his family for 500 years. He held it before the council. "I stake my life," he said. "I stake my honor. I stake my family name. The humans deserve our aid, not because we are kind, but because we are, and they keep their debts." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, other members began to stand. One by one, the ancient warriors of the Rose in agreement. Rose last. He was so old that the motion took time, but when he stood, the entire chamber straightened. "Send a message to the collective," he said. "Tell them they have spoken. The humans are under our protection. Any attack on humanity is an attack on the Empire. Let them choose, withdraw or face war." The message was sent. It was short, and it carried the weight of 10,000 years of power. The council members knew what they were doing. They were declaring themselves. They were marking their territory. They were saying that something small and unexpected had value to them. In his command center, Vex received the message. He read it twice. His commanders gathered around him, waiting to hear what he would do. "To protect them," Vex said. His tone was flat, final. "We cannot fight not yet. Not when they are united and we are still building our strength. Pull back the attacks. Leave the humans alone." "But sir," one of his commanders said, "we had plans. We had momentum." "Plans change," Vex said. "They have chosen. We will find another way. For now we watch, we wait. We remember that the humans have something worth dying for. That is useful information." Word spread across the galaxy. They had stepped in to protect humanity. It should not have mattered. Humanity was small. Humanity was young. Humanity should have been forgotten. But they did not protect species lightly, and their protection meant something. In the Human Federation, Hayes received the news in his office. A message from the Council, addressed to him personally. It was a formal acknowledgement of the debt. It was a promise that they would stand with humanity. It was an offer of alliance, something unprecedented. Read the message again and again. He thought of Captain standing in the dark corridor of his dying ship. He thought of those words, "I will tell this to my people. I will tell them what I have seen here." Had kept his word. And somewhere in the darkness of space, other species began to wonder. What did humanity have that made the mighty care? What was it about these strange, young creatures that moved the oldest powers in the galaxy? The answers would come slowly, but the universe had begun to notice that humans were different, and that notice would change everything. The attack on New Portland came without warning, though in hindsight there had been signs. Scout reports of movement along the sector boundaries. Communications that went silent in certain regions. The growing certainty that Vex was testing the limits of the promise. The assault struck the research station at dawn. The facility sat on high ground overlooking the colony, a place of learning and science where humans and other species worked together. 340 people worked there. Among them were 3 young scientists who had come to study human innovation in genetic engineering. Admiral Hayes, now promoted and bearing the weight of that rank, received the alert in his command center on the Federation capital world. The message came through in fragments, broken by explosions and weapons fire. "This is Research Station 7. We are under attack. Multiple landing craft. Heavy weapons. Please respond. Please send help. We cannot hold long." Was already moving. He was a military man, had been trained in the doctrines of strategy and tactics. He knew the numbers. The station was 2 days away at best. They were already on the ground. The station's defenses were minimal. It was a research facility, not a fortress. By the time any help arrived, they would have complete control. He knew all of this, and he gave the order anyway. "Get me every combat-ready vessel in this sector," he said. "I want them moving toward New Portland now. Captain Foster is leading the strike team. Brief them on what we know." His staff officer, a woman named Karen who had served with him for 5 years, looked at him with eyes that said everything. This was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. "Sir," she began. "I know," said. "Send the order anyway. We do not leave people behind, not ever. That is who we are." Captain Foster received her orders while suiting up for a routine patrol. She was a soldier's soldier, 35 years old, with scars on her face and a steady hand. When they told her about the research station, she did not hesitate. "Get me a team," she said. "Best people we have, heavy weapons, medical kits, breaching charges. We are going in to bring them home." The journey to New Portland took the strike cruiser 14 hours. They ran at maximum speed, pushing the engines to the limit. Used that time to brief her soldiers. 40 of them, all volunteers, all knowing what they faced. "They are not known for taking prisoners," she told them. "They are known for being brutal and efficient. We are going to land north of the station out of their main patrol zones. We are going to move in fast and hard. We are going to get everyone we can and get out. We do not stop. We do not rest. We do not leave anyone behind who can still move." "Captain," one of her soldiers said, There are 300 people in that station. We are 40. What are we going to do? We are going to do what humans do, said. We are going to stand in the gap and not move. We are going to hold that station long enough for evacuation shuttles to come down from the orbit. And we are going to remind them that it is a bad idea to attack human-protected territory. The insertion was smooth. They dropped fast and landed hard, moving into the forest cover before the patrols even knew they were there, studied the tactical display. They had set up a perimeter around the station. They had heavy weapons positioned on the high ground. They had control of all the main approaches. It was a fortress, and they were about to assault it with 40 soldiers. Looked at her people. She saw fear on some faces. She saw determination on others. She saw humans ready to do something impossible because it was the right thing to do. Let's move, she said. The battle for Research Station 7 lasted 5 hours. It was brutal and loud and desperate. They fought hard because they were good at killing, because they had superior numbers and firepower. But they had not counted on Foster and her soldiers, who fought like creatures possessed, who seemed to know exactly when to move, where to strike, how to push through seemingly impossible odds. The first hour was the worst. They had the high ground in the numbers. His team took casualties. 3 soldiers went down in the first contact, but they kept moving. They flanked the positions. They attacked from unexpected angles. They fought like they had nothing to lose. Because they understood something that did not. They fought for people they had never met but who were their responsibility. 3 scientists, young and brilliant, were inside that station. Human researchers, colonists, people who had chosen to build something in this place. They fought because they had been ordered to. His team fought because that was who they were. As the battle raged, pushed forward, she fought her way toward the station's main entrance, her weapon hot and her eyes sharp. Behind her, her soldiers pushed the perimeter back, inch by inch, meter by meter. One of the 3 scientists, a young female named, appeared at the window of the station. She was trying to lead people to safety, trying to get them to the side entrance where evacuation could happen. They saw her. A soldier took aim. Saw the moment before it happened. The weapon charging, the target locking, the death about to come. She moved without thinking. She threw herself forward, putting her body between and the weapon. The blast came hot and hard, catching her in the left shoulder and side. The pain was white and terrible, but she kept moving. Go, she screamed get your people out. His eyes widened. For a moment, the scientist stood frozen. This human, this creature from a primitive species, had just sacrificed her body to save the life of a being she had never met. It did not make sense. It violated every assumption about how creatures behaved, about the value of individuals, about what one person would do for another. But it had happened, and would spend the rest of her life remembering it. Fell to her knees. One of her soldiers, a young man named, caught her before she hit the ground. I'm okay, said, though she was not. Blood poured from her wound. Her left arm was not responding properly, but she kept giving orders. Get her out. Get all of them out. Do not stop until everyone is safe. The evacuation shuttles came down 30 minutes later, descending through heavy fire to land in the clearings team had fought to secure. Over the next hour, 300 people moved through the gap that 40 soldiers held open. It was a human fortress now, built of flesh and determination, and the refusal to let another person die alone. When the last shuttle lifted off, let herself collapse, caught her again, held her as medics worked on the wound. She was losing blood fast. The wound was serious, very serious. Get her medical attention, said. Get her on that shuttle. Wanted to protest, but her vision was going dark. The last thing she saw was the sky above the research station, the stars coming out as the sun fell, and the shuttle rising toward freedom. 2 days later, when the news reached the council, the chamber fell absolutely silent. Made her testimony from the medical facility on New Portland. She described the battle. She described how humans with weapons and courage had stood against superior numbers. She described how Captain Foster had thrown herself between and a deadly blast, not even hesitating, not even questioning whether it was worth the cost. This human was grievously wounded, said. She fell, but even as she fell, she was still giving orders to protect us. She was still thinking of others. This is not the behavior of a primitive species. This is not the behavior of creatures who fight only for gain. This is the behavior of something rare, something precious, something that has forgotten how to value itself. The council received the message, Red's testimony personally. When he finished, he looked at. "You were right," he said. "The humans are not what we thought." Word spread across the galaxy. A human captain had sacrificed herself to save 3 scientists. They had tested the alliance and found it was not just words. The humans would fight. The humans would bleed. The humans would die to protect those under their care. And somewhere in a medical facility, Foster lay in a recovery pod, her body mending, her sacrifice already becoming legend. Received the reports. He learned what had done. He felt the weight of command, the knowledge that he had sent her there, that he had ordered her into impossible odds. But he also felt something else. Pride. Deep, true pride in what his people could do when faced with the choice between survival and doing what was right. He composed a message to the council. It was simple and clear. A favor given without expectation of return is no favor at all. It is simply the right thing to do. The words spread through society like ripples in water. Philosophers spoke of them. Young read them and wondered what kind of species would act this way. The older generation began to question what they had been told about humans. And in the darkness of space, the collective pulled back their forces and watched. Vex understood now that something fundamental had changed. Humanity was no longer alone. And worse, humanity had proven something the galaxy had forgotten, that courage and sacrifice mattered more than weapons or numbers. That was a dangerous lesson, and it would reshape everything that came after. The invitation came through official channels, addressed to Admiral Hayes and the Human Federation. It was written in formal language, the kind used for matters of great importance. The Council was extending an offer that had not been extended to any new species in 800 years. Humanity was invited to the Galactic Accord, the ancient treaty organization that had governed interstellar relations since the beginning of recorded civilization. Held the document in his hands and read it 3 times. His staff gathered around him in silence, waiting for him to speak. "This is what we have been fighting for," he said finally. "This is what sacrifice earned, not just protection but acceptance. We are no longer the young species trying to survive. We are now partners." The ceremony took place on Prime, the home world of the civilization. It was a planet of dark stone and cold wind, beautiful in its harshness. The great halls where the ceremony would happen had stood for 10,000 years. They had seen the rise and fall of empires. They had seen treaties signed that shaped the galaxy, and now they would see humanity step into the light. Arrived with a small delegation, ministers of defense and science, engineers and philosophers, people who represented the best that humanity had to offer. As he walked through the halls of Prime, felt the weight of history. This moment would be remembered. Future generations would trace the beginning of humanity's rise to this place, this day, this ceremony. He was led to the chamber of the council. It was vast and empty except for the ancient leadership seated in a circle, stood at the center. When he saw, his expression shifted. Something that might have been a smile crossed the captain's face. Admiral Hayes said, "You honor us with your presence." Captain replied, using the formal greeting, "The honor is mine." They walked toward each other until they stood face to face. The entire chamber watched, extended his hand, the gesture of a human greeting that he had learned from all those months ago. Took it. 2 species, 2 leaders, standing as equals in the presence of the oldest powers in the galaxy. "We were wrong about your kind," said, his voice low enough that only could hear. "We thought knowledge and power made a species superior. We did not understand that it is the choices you make that define you. You have chosen sacrifice. You have chosen honor. You have shown us that these things matter." "You made the first choice," said. "You believed in us when we were nothing to you. That took courage." "Yes," said, "it did. And I have been rewarded for that courage. I was right. The universe is better with humans in it." The ceremony continued. The Council formally voted to accept humanity as a member of the Galactic Accord. The ancient words were spoken. The seals were placed. And humanity, young and small and brave, was now part of the oldest pact in the galaxy. News of the ceremony spread through the Accord worlds. Some representatives were pleased, others were troubled. The collective was particularly angry. In his war chamber, Vex threw something against a wall in frustration. "They have made them equal," he said. "The humans are now voting members of the Accord. How is this possible?" "Because the humans matter now," his commander said. "They have proven themselves." Vex looked at the star map at the space where humanity had begun to grow. Months ago they had been nothing, an annoyance, a distraction. Now they were partners with the greatest power in the galaxy. "They will not be partners for long," Vex said. "We will show the galaxy that youth and courage are no match for experience and strength. We will bring them down, and when they fall, they will understand that allying with the weak is weakness." The attack came 3 months later. It was massive, far larger than any previous assault. Vex was no longer testing. He was declaring war. Fleets emerged from collective space and attacked on multiple fronts. Territories, human colonies, shipping lanes that carried goods between the Accord worlds. The collective was pushing on all sides. The Galactic Accord convened. It was the first time humanity sat in that great chamber as equals, able to vote on matters of galactic security. Was there, along with representatives from a dozen other species. Humans, the crystalline beings of Sigma Prime, the cybernetic intelligences of the Nexus, the biological hive minds of the collective swarm, and others, stood before them all. The ancient leader was over 370 years old, and he carried the weight of every one of those years. "We face a choice," said. "The collective grows bold. They attack our territories. They attack our partners. They test our resolve. We can respond with force or we can negotiate. We can show strength or we can show weakness." A representative from the Nexus Intelligence spoke. "The logical choice is unified military response. The collective operates through intimidation. Intimidation requires an opponent who might be intimidated. A unified response shows we cannot be intimidated." "But such a response costs resources," said the representative from Sigma Prime. "It costs us time. It costs us lives." The chamber fell silent. This was his first opportunity to speak in the Accord as an equal. Everyone waited to hear what humanity would say. "The collective understands fear," said. "They understand the fear of losing power, losing territory, losing control. But there is something they do not understand. There is something no amount of military power can teach them. And that is the power of unity built on something deeper than fear." "What do you propose?" asked. "I propose we show them," said. "I propose we fight, yes, but we fight together. We do not fight because we are afraid of the collective. We fight because we are protecting what we value. We fight because we are allied not by treaties alone but by something stronger, by respect, by the knowledge that each of us would sacrifice for the others. We fight because the collective does not have what we have, and they never will, no matter how many ships they build." The chamber was quiet for a moment. Then, one by one, the representatives began to stand. They stood as stood. They stood as a united galaxy. The battle came a week later. The Accord forces met the collective fleet in the neutral zone between territories. It was the largest battle the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. Ships clashed. Weapons fired. The void of space lit up with the flash of dying vessels. And the Accord forces won, not because they had better weapons or larger numbers. They won because they fought as one. They won because when one species was threatened, the others moved to protect them. They won because Hayes was right. They had something the collective did not understand. They had trust. The fleet broke and scattered. Vex pulled back, retreating deeper into collective space. He had learned a lesson that would take him years to fully understand. The old powers of the galaxy were not fading. They were being reborn, stronger than before, united by something the collective could never match. As stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the enemy fleet retreat, Captain stood beside him. "You were right," said. "That day when you saved my ship, you were right about something. I think I finally understand what you meant when you said humans remember a favor." "What did I mean?" asked. "You meant that humans build something lasting," said. "A favor saved is not a transaction. It is a beginning. It is the start of something that grows over time. We saved each other today not because of any contract or obligation. We saved each other because we trusted each other, because we had built something together. That is what you were trying to tell me, and that is what the collective will never understand." Smiled. "I did not know that was what I meant, but now that you say it, I think it is exactly right." The Galactic Accord was changed that day. Humanity was no longer the young species struggling to survive. They were partners. They were equals, and more than that, they were trusted. The news spread across the galaxy. They had been defeated. The Accord stood united, and at the center of it all was a story that kept being told and retold. The story of how a small ship had found a dying vessel and chosen to help, not knowing what would come next. How that single choice had rippled across the stars, changing everything. In the years that followed, would often think about that moment when he first saw the distress signal from the. He would think about how easily he could have passed it by. How the galaxy would have been different if he had made a different choice. But humans, he understood now, did not make different choices. Humans remembered, humans sacrificed. Humans stood together even when standing together was difficult. That was who they were, and the stars were finally beginning to notice. 5 years had passed since the battle that saved the Galactic Accord. Hayes was older now, his hair turning gray at the temples. The weight of command had left marks on his face, but his eyes were still sharp. He stood in the great chamber of Prime, preparing to do something that had never been done before. He was about to address the grand assembly of the civilization. The chamber was enormous, with walls of dark stone and columns that rose so high they seemed to touch the sky. 10,000 had gathered to listen. They sat in perfect silence, waiting. The last human to speak in this place had been no one. There had been no last human. No human had ever been allowed to address the Grand Assembly. Was the first. He wore the dress uniform of the Human Federation, dark blue with gold trim. On his chest were the medals of his rank and service. He carried the weight of his species with him as he walked to the center of the chamber, stood to the side, watching his friend with an expression of approval. "I stand before you today," began, his voice steady, "to speak of a moment that changed everything. 5 years ago, my ship found a vessel in distress. We helped because it was the right thing to do. We did not help because we expected reward. We did not help because we were calculating benefit. We helped because when we saw death coming for another living being, we chose to stand against it." The assembly was silent, listening. "I have tried for 5 years to understand why that moment mattered so much, why it changed the course of events across the entire galaxy, and I think I finally understand the answer. It is because in a universe that often deals in fear and power and control, we showed something different. We showed that there is another way. A way built on choosing to help even when helping costs us. A way built on remembering those who help us and repaying that help with loyalty and sacrifice." A young in the audience leaned forward. She was barely 200 years old, part of the generation that had grown up hearing about humans, about their strange and inexplicable choices. "Humans are not calculating creatures," continued. We do not look at a problem and ask what benefit we can gain. We look at a problem and ask what is right. We look at someone in danger and ask what we can do to help. This is not weakness. This is the foundation of strength that no army can match and no weapon can overcome. He paused. Behind him, the great entrance to the chamber opened, walked through. The young scientist who had been saved at Research Station 7. She had spent the last 5 years learning about humanity, studying human philosophy, human art, human society. She had become, in many ways, a bridge between two species. 5 years ago, a human named Foster threw herself in front of a weapon to save my life, said, her voice carrying through the chamber. I did not understand it then. I did not understand why a creature I had never met would sacrifice their body, their future, their life for someone who was not their species, not their family, not their friend. And then I began to understand what Admiral Hayes is saying now. It is because humans see that sacrifice is not loss. Sacrifice is the creation of something lasting. It is the building of a bond that cannot be broken. Nodded and continued his speech. In your history, you have built a civilization of science and philosophy and power. You have accomplished things that seem impossible. But in one thing, I believe you have lost something. You have lost the understanding that a being's worth is not measured in their power or their knowledge or their age. A being's worth is measured in their choices, in what they do when no one is watching, in what they do when helping costs them. The words hung in the chamber, could see the effect they were having. The younger were nodding. The older ones were thinking, their ancient minds considering things they had not questioned in centuries. We have given you everything, said an old council member standing. His name was, and he had opposed the Accord membership from the beginning. We have given you protection. We have brought you into the Accord. We have treated you as equals, and you come here and lecture us about our own values. Did not back down. I do not lecture, he said. I speak as one who has learned from you. I speak as someone whose life has been changed by what I learned from your people. Captain taught me what it means to honor a commitment. The taught me what it means to build something lasting. I stand here and speak not to tell you that you are wrong. I stand here to tell you that you are right. You are absolutely right about the importance of remembering, of honor, of commitment. You have simply forgotten how to apply those values to those you see as lesser. And I am here to remind you that there is no such thing as lesser. There is only different. The Grand Assembly erupted, not in anger but in discussion. The words spread through the ancient chamber, changing as they moved, being debated and refined and questioned. Approached after the speech. The captain was older too, his body showing the signs of age even for a who would live for hundreds more years. You have given them something to think about, said. Is that good or bad? Asked. It is good, said. The Galaxy Council has had its recommendations. I have brought a proposal to them and they have agreed. I wanted to tell you in person before it becomes official. They are proposing to make our union with humanity more than political. We are proposing to make it a true alliance. Not a temporary arrangement based on current need, but a binding commitment that will last as long as both our species exist. Felt something shift inside his chest. What does that mean exactly? It means we are choosing you, said. We are choosing to stand with you, not because we owe you a debt, but because we have come to understand that you are worth standing with. It means that if anything threatens you, we will respond. And it means that you are bound to do the same for us. It is not a transaction. It is a partnership. Like family, said. Like family, agreed. We have been alone in this galaxy for so long, thinking ourselves superior to all others. And then you came and showed us something we had forgotten. You showed us how to be strong without being cruel, how to be powerful without losing your humanity. You reminded us that there is honor in caring for others. As prepared to leave Prime, he walked alone through the stone corridors of the ancient city. His mind was full of the last 5 years, the battles fought, the losses suffered, the growth achieved. He thought about Foster, still recovering from her wounds, still serving in the Federation military with the same courage she had shown at Research Station 7. He thought about Wells, who now served as a technical advisor to the fleet. He thought about all the ways in which the two species had come together, creating something neither could have created alone. His shuttle rose from the surface of Prime, watched the dark stone world fall away beneath him. As they broke through the atmosphere and headed toward the waiting fleet, he thought about that moment 5 years ago when the Stellar Hope had received a distress signal and he had given the order to help. It seemed like a small thing, just a rescue operation, just humans doing what humans did, but it had been more than that. It had been the beginning of something that would echo through history. In the years that followed, would often tell the story of that rescue to younger officers, to people who were just beginning their careers. He would tell them about Captain, about the choice he had made. And then he would say the same thing every time. Remember, he would tell them, that you never know what consequence your actions will have. You never know what a single choice will lead to. So always choose what is right. Always help those who are in need. Always remember that the universe is watching and what you do matters, not because it will bring reward, but because it is right. The collective watched all of this from the edge of Accord space. They saw the unity forming. They saw the alliance growing stronger. And in his chamber, Vex began to understand something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The Accord was not winning because they were stronger. They were winning because they were united in a way the collective could never be. The collective was bound by fear and hierarchy. The Accord was bound by something deeper. They were bound by the knowledge that each member could be trusted. They were bound by the choices they had made to stand together. They were bound by debt, yes, but not the kind that came from obligation. They were bound by the debt of knowing that another species had saved you when they owed you nothing. And in the depths of space, the stars seemed to notice. The universe seemed to take note. A young species had emerged, a species that remembered favors, that paid debts, that stood for something more than power, and the galaxy would never be the same. Hayes lived to be 97 years old. He retired from command and spent his final years writing, teaching, and working with the joint human council that had been established to deepen the alliance. When he died, both the Human Federation and the Empire held ceremonies to honor his memory. But his greatest legacy was not in his military victories or his political accomplishments. His legacy was in the simple truth he had lived by and taught to others. Humans remember a favor, and the universe takes notice. And that truth, carried forward by generations of both humans and shaped the future of the galaxy. It showed that there was a power greater than weapons, greater than numbers, greater than advanced technology. There was the power of remembrance. There was the power of keeping one's word. There was the power of choosing to sacrifice for others. In the vast darkness of space, where civilizations rose and fell, where great empires clashed, that power mattered most. And it all began with a single choice made by a young human commander who looked at a dying ship and said, "Yes, we will help. We will do what is right. We will remember." The universe listened, and everything changed.